Iran has nuclear weapons, and the Iranian military is massed at the northern border of Israel. Well, that's the headline. Hi, everybody. I'm Jimmy DeYoung, and welcome to Prophecy Moment. We're going to have two reports from my broadcast partners in just a moment. Ken Timmerman will come to the broadcast table to talk about the nuclear weapons that Iran has been able to develop under the guise of the fact that they had a nuclear deal with the Obama administration. The Trump administration pulled out of that deal because it really was not a deal at all. You'll see what our good friend and broadcast partner Ken Timmerman has to say about that in a moment. And then David Dolan, longtime journalist in the Middle East for over 35 years actually, is going to give us his Middle East news update. We'll talk about the fact that the Iranian military is within 2.5 miles of the northern border of the state of Israel. And you'll understand why I gave you that headline at the beginning of the telecast. Iran has nuclear weapons, and they are massing their military at the northern border of the Jewish state of Israel. Well, let's go to Ken Timmerman. I want you to hear this report. We come back, we'll talk more about the activities of the Iranian military as they move to try to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Here's Ken Timmerman. There is a report out that Iran is close to a nuclear weapons breakout. In other words, they should have nuclear weapons ready to mount on one of those Shahab 3 missiles to send it anywhere, especially towards Israel. What do you know?
This is a recent report from the United Nations, the International Atomic Energy Agency, who has been sending inspectors to Iran, but they've not been allowed by the Iranians to visit many of the sites that they want to see. What we see now is kind of a mixture between what the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency itself, has said about Iran and their stockpiles of low-enriched uranium, and what the Iranians say. The Iranians say that they have enriched more than what they've shown to the United Nations. In fact, they've got low-enriched uranium, which would be enough if they enriched it up to weapons grade to give them nuclear breakout capability. That is not the Iranian plan. The Iranian plan, which was discovered by Israeli intelligence 2 years ago when they found the secret nuclear warehouse outside of Tehran, the Iranian plan is to build 5 weapons, to break out rapidly with an arsenal of 5 weapons. They are not there yet. They have enough now for a single warhead, and they have also been enriching beyond that low enrichment amount. They've been going up to 20%, something else they have not told the IAEA. So this is a mixed bag, if you wish. The Iranians have gone way further than they were supposed to go under the bad Iran deal, which the United States pulled out of. They now have about 5 times the amount of uranium, enriched uranium, that they were allowed to have under that regime. But they have not yet broken out entirely from the restrictions of the Non-Proliferation Treaty.
Ken's report on Iran and their development of a nuclear weapon of mass destruction. Now, I know you've probably heard this report before. I've made that statement that they were right at the verge of having a weapon of mass destruction, a nuclear weapon that they could put on a Shahab 3 missile, that vehicle which would bring that nuclear weapon to any target area in the state of Israel. That's the vehicle that they would use. I've talked about it. In fact, I even talked about the fact that Iran had started to move their military out of Syria. Now, that was a report we got from the Israeli Defense Force, which is the military operation of the state of Israel. Just a moment, David Dolan is going to prove that statement wrong, and we'll explain how that is not the case. So it was good to have a report from Ken Timmerman about these nuclear weapons of mass destruction. And this time, just remember what he said. You're dealing with what the United Nations, their IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, is reporting. They're not able to inspect in Iran, to go to the sites to make certain they are not developing that nuclear weapon of mass destruction, which the Obama nuclear deal did call for, and that's falling apart. And then the Iranian leadership, they're saying the exact same thing. We have a capability of putting a nuclear warhead on a Shahab missile and firing it any place in the state of Israel. That's their stated goal. They want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Now, not only is that the case, and I mentioned at the beginning that indeed the Iranian military is massed there at the northern border of Israel. David Dolan, longtime journalist in the Middle East, is going to give us his Middle East news update to help you understand why that is the case. Here's Dave Dolan. Iran has its forces amassed there at the Israeli northern border. What can you tell us?
Well, continuing signs that Iran is preparing for aggression, Jimmy, as you just said. And we talked a few weeks ago about some Israeli reports that Iran might be pulling its forces out of Syria. That is not happening. In fact, there's significant movement going on. Hezbollah still very, very active. And all of this coming amidst new threats from Iranian leaders against both Israel and the U.S., specifically the Foreign Ministry spokesman saying that the U.S. is not welcome in the region. He used the phrase from the current racial crisis in America that Washington's knee is on our neck, and it has to kneel in front of us, and it will kneel down in front of Iran and be defeated by Iran. So those threats coming, some new threats from Iran's ally, North Korea, as well. So the Israelis continuing to watch the northern front very, very closely, Jimmy. They know that if there is a war this year with Iran, that's probably where it will start. Meanwhile, we continue to have that Iranian nuclear program humming again, and the Israelis are very concerned about that. So all of this happening amidst some new COVID crisis in Israel, cases, I should say, a surge of cases there. So they're also dealing with that. But obviously the overall threats to the country are not so much from a little virus, but from what Iran could potentially do in a major war with its allies. And they're very much on alert for that.
David's Middle East News Update. And both of these men are on our radio broadcast that's an hour and a half long every Saturday. You can hear it. There's a number of networks that carry it across the United States. But if you're not able to have a network affiliate in your area, you can go to my website, prophecytoday.com, scroll down on the home page, and you'll see that we have Prophecy Today Radio. And there you'll be able to hook in to the broadcast that is going to be broadcast on the internet, not only across America, but around the world. And we're so thrilled to be able to hear from those who do hear the broadcast over the internet. A great vehicle, a great thing that God brought into our hands, a capability of reaching the world. Well, these two reports emphasize that Iran is going to be a major player in the end times. There's going to be, in that first 6 months of the tribulation period, an alignment of nations that will come against the Jewish state of Israel to wipe them off the face of the earth. Iran is mentioned. They're mentioned as Persia there in Ezekiel 38 and verse 5. That was their name until 1936 when they changed it to Iran. And so they're going to be one of those members of that alignment of nations, that coalition who wants to destroy the state of Israel. Psalm chapter 83 and verse 4 says they come out of the council meeting, they have decided what they're going to do, and they're going to do everything to rid this world of the Jewish state of Israel, that her name be forgotten forever. That's Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 5, Persia, modern-day Iran. And the Psalms, and that's chapter 83 and verse 4, their plan to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Now, you know when that's going to happen? According to Ezekiel chapter 38, and jot these two verses down, Ezekiel 38 and verse 8 says, when they are dwelling safely in the land. There's a military terminology that is used in verse 11 of Ezekiel 38 when they're living in unwalled villages. Remember, 2,500 years ago, when Ezekiel wrote the book, he did not have any idea of a Mark V tank, a very sophisticated tank, an F-16 or an F-35 aircraft, an Apache attack helicopter. What they used to defend their city, their people, was a wall around the city. And that's exactly what he's talking about when he says they'll live in unwalled villages. In other words, all their defenses will have been laid down. That's key to your understanding of when this attack, this alignment of nations will try to destroy the Jewish state. He'll be led by Antichrist, this nation will, because they're going to work in the hearts and minds of the leader of Russia, who will be the nation controlling this alignment of Islamic nations in the Middle East to try to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Well, when do the Jewish people dwell safely in the land? They're going to dwell safely in the land when they believe the Messiah, the Antichrist, has come and confirmed a peace agreement. Well, that's Daniel chapter 9 and verse 27. And he, the Antichrist, a false Messiah, will confirm, not sign, but confirm peace treaties already on the table. They're already on the table. He will confirm those peace treaties. And then that's when the 7-year tribulation period begins. And in that first 6 months, this alignment of nations trying to destroy the Jewish state of Israel. Now, the Antichrist comes, he confirms a peace treaty, and then the alignment goes after their enemy, the Jewish state of Israel. But when does the Antichrist appear? 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 says, after the rapture of the church. That's our blessed hope. We talk about it all the time here on Prophecy Moment. The blessed hope, the rapture of the church, when Jesus calls us out of this world, and all the other prophetic truth that we ever talk about takes place after that rapture. No prophecy has to be fulfilled before the rapture. It's the next event which could happen today. And having said that, nothing left for me to say, except let's keep looking up until